um, to what we're going to look at here is session 2. The title is Transform Your Educational System to Fully Support a Career, Community, and Life Readiness Approach with Aaron Black. Aaron is the superintendent of Liberty Perry School District in Indiana. He's done some amazing things in the area of work-based learning and shifting mindsets in education. We're going to learn a lot of great things from Aaron. Aaron also has been on our Future Is CCLR webcast series. So I think we'll share that probably in the chat so people can take a peek at that. Gave us some great information back in the fall. It's great to have you here with us, Aaron. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Scott and team, for allowing me to join you. And really, I'm excited to share, but I'm also excited to listen in and learn from others like across your state and the country on the work being done in career connected learning. So appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, you betcha. You betcha. And I'll interject. If anybody of the attendees have questions, please, send them through the chat. Aaron, I'm sure we'll answer them. And again, I may have a few myself. So have
Yeah,
at it. The floor is yours.
certainly works better when we get crowd participation. So I
Yeah.
just like to level set with folks before I get started, understanding my why and why I do the work that I do. So as a public school superintendent, a lot of times I run into colleagues that had a different path, a very different path of where I came from. But growing up in a family of five and the youngest and only boy in my family, grew up in poverty. There's a lot of things going on in my family's life that now looking back as adult that are a little more clear, but a lot of trauma and things that came along with me. So school was never something high on our priority list. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of teachers' names and things that I remember from elementary school. What I do remember from elementary school was trying to make sure that people didn't know that I was on free and reduced lunch. Moving through middle school, again, school didn't resonate, but fortunately, being in the state of Indiana, everybody plays basketball. And I fell in love with that little orange ball. And it started to change my life in some positive ways. And the fact that it helped me engage, gave me a why to make grades, to stay in school, and those type of things. And moving to high school, unfortunately, I use this picture to depict an experience that I'll never forget. The varsity coach who I was trying to make a positive impression on set me down one day and said, Aaron, I know who you are and where you're from. You're never going to make anything of your life.
Mm.
Now, I think back, that comment was probably used as a motivational tool from a coach, but what he didn't understand is that that was the voice I had in my head all the time. Those were the things I had speaking to me. So that really set me back in the academic journey. Freshman and sophomore, I was a CD student. Again, just lost my passion for because basketball was my why. Fortunately, as a junior in high school, I met two teachers that poured themselves into my life, really saw something in me I didn't see and started to challenge me in a different way. And through that process, I grew as a student. I grew an understanding of education and have a greater respect for it. Unfortunately, I didn't have the grades in order to get into college the first round. So I spent some time working in a sawmill and I'm sorry.
That's all right.
And I landed a spot at Ball State University in their education program. And from there, I went on to be the first person in my family to earn a degree to this day. I'm the only student our family member to earn a degree from college. And I share all that so people have a perspective on what kind of drives me and wants me to create a different experience, make sure that all students have their place in education. That being said, I really lean into this quote heavily, that education is our passport to the future. And I know that's everything we're talking about. For tomorrow belongs only to the people who prepare for it today. And I think that's our charge as educational leaders. And again, what we're called to do. One exercise that we can open up in the chat is I encourage people to look at or think about what a high school transcript would look like in 1920. And then think about what a high school transcript looks like in 2020.
Wow.
And when you compare those two things, I really would challenge you to say, what has changed? From a traditional setting, you still have 4 years of English, 4 years of mathematics, multiple years of history, multiple years of science. So outside of throwing devices into classrooms, how has school changed over 100-year period? Then to follow that up, I'd encourage you to think about and share in the comments is what have we done to create the change for our kids in the classroom? So how does today's classroom look different than the classroom that we took part in 20, 30 years ago? And I would challenge you to think about some of the traditional high school. I know a lot of us have the same mindset, but some of your traditional high schools, and not a lot has changed. And most schools in the state of Indiana, I would say every 50 minutes, kids get up to the sound of a bell from chairs that are seated in rows and move to the next class that emulates that workforce era that we designed school for. So that punching the time clock mentality that just hasn't changed. So that again is just for me to level set. In the chat, does anybody have any thoughts on major differences that you would say call out in the last 100 years of education?
One of the comments, Aaron, there you can see is that if high schools worked like businesses, they wouldn't exist.
Very
If they
true.
were a business, they wouldn't exist.
Right.
Yeah. It's amazing. Curious where you got that transcript from.
So that is an AI generated transcript. That's why there's misspellings and that, because I use that on purpose as well, because it just kind of speaks to how AI views the lack of change in education in the last 100 years.
Yeah.
Earning college credits and high school and youth apprenticeships, yep, that's a bit of a change. And that has come and gone, I think, over the last 100 years. It's good. So the point here being is we know that in the last 100 years that school has changed some, but has it changed in the way in which we've seen society change? And I would say, in particular, in the last 20 years, since 2000, 2005, with the implementation of technology, schools traditionally have not kept up with the changes needed to prepare our kids for the future, which they're going to encounter. I like this quote. I picked this up a couple years ago, but are we delivering a telegraph education to a TikTok generation? Again, that's just a challenging thought that I would challenge you. What looks different in your classrooms today than it did 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years ago? There's just too many schools that still look the same and are holding on to the same traditions that aren't preparing our kids for their future. So the reality is that I think the challenge, if we think about life today in 2025, is what does the experience look like for our kids that are being born? What's their workforce going to look like in 2045? What we know 3 years ago when this conversation around AI started and to where we are today as far as how intrusive it is in our life and how much it dominates conversation, what's that going to look like in 2045? And the answer to that is, I don't know that we know. I know for a guy that's aging a little bit along the way, it's a bit scary. But I think we have to be okay with and humble to say that we don't know what's going to look like. So we have to develop the skills to make sure that our kids are capable to learn in any environment thrown at them. So are your kids future ready? And this slide is my favorite slide in the presentation. So this is my daughter. She's a third grader. She'll graduate in the class of 2035. Second grader, sorry. She'll graduate in the class of 2035. So it makes it personal for me. What do I want her to walk through and learn at school differently than what my experience would have been and what many kids' experience would have been? Because I know her future job probably doesn't exist currently. So how do we prepare my daughter Tinley for a future that we cannot quite put our finger on what her experience is going to be in the workforce? Some innovative approaches I think that schools need to strongly consider in their approach to finding these answers. And this seems a bit like an oxymoron sometimes when I talk about it, but I think it's a struggle because as school folks, we're not always humble enough to bring our students to the table. Every space I've ever been in, whether it's been a principal, an athletic director, or a superintendent, I've always had a student council that helped hear my thoughts and the vision that I was projecting for a school and help sculpt those thoughts. Here I have my SSAT, which is Superintendent's Student Advisory Team. And one thing we do is we meet monthly and we just talk about issues that are going on. And you'd be really surprised about how open students are willing to speak to you about the good things and challenging things going on in their school. And once you create that culture where kids can talk openly, but not only speak openly, but feel like they truly have a voice in their educational experience, you'd be amazed at what they're able to bring forward and the thoughts and ideas that they share. This team is instrumental in every conversation, from what school lunch could look like to what their work-based learning experience will look like in the future. They've been instrumental in speaking to our public. So I take these kids on the road and allow them to share with others. The other real cool thing we have in Indiana is I get the opportunity to collaborate with really incredible leaders that are leading schools, and we bring our kids together. So we have 3 districts that meet 3 or 4 times a year with all of our advisory teams, and we just propose questions like, what would you want your politicians to know? Again, right, when you're going through a legislative session, what do you want your politicians to know about high school students in 2025? And we allow them to work with one another to answer those questions. And you can read some of the comments that I captured on our slide deck. But you know, when a student looks up in a room full and shares, I just wish that politicians knew that being a high school student's hard. Like it's a struggle. Like we carry a lot of weight. Just calling out the fact that they wish that people judge them by more than their grade. They very interested. This generation of students very interested in being known for the work that they can do, not for whether or not they're an A, B, or C student. So creating spaces where students collaborate and discuss and help set the vision for their future, in my opinion, is an incredible way to understand what their life is going to look like. Another area which I encourage folks to consider is to get your community involved early and often. 3 districts here locally. When I was at Randolph Eastern, we had what we call the Educational Transformation Team. That started in a coffee shop with 8 folks that were business leaders and me just having conversation on what they needed out of their employees in the future, like what they needed, what skill set their students needed. That has grown here. My experience at Wapahani, and don't make fun of me, I created the Swifties. I'm leaning into Taylor Swift a little bit, but supporting Wapahani and Future Transformation, that's the name of our high school. So, and all these discussions are built around what do we want our graduates to look like when they walk across the stage. And the amazing thing that you learn when you're meeting with employers and the people that are going to employ our young people is very rarely do you hear things like, I need a student that can write a better essay, or I need a student with this math skill set, or I need this student with this level of science in their transcript. 95% of our conversations have always been around what some refer to as soft skills, and I'll get to it later, but talk to them about power skills. Like, can they work with each other? Can they problem solve? Do they know what problem solving look like? And those type of skills. Can they communicate properly? Can they communicate in a virtual and face-to-face environment? Like our employers, those are things that they desire in our students, and our students get to hear it in those groups, but also our teachers get to hear what our community members are saying in those groups. So I heavily encourage that we find ways to involve our community early and often in conversation on career connected learning.
Hey, Aaron, I do have a question as I'm sitting here.
Yes.
What's the involvement of your teachers in, these partnership type groups?
Yeah, so they're all invited and encouraged to come. It varies depending on the topic that's being discussed.
Yeah.
So I always share the agenda, but I have a good number of teachers that show up, and many of our teachers, as we know, wear multiple hats. They could be parents, so they have a level of concern there, and they also are oftentimes married to folks or spouses that are
Yeah.
heavily involved in the industry side. So it's really a nice blend, and I think that's the way it works best. That's how you create the buy-in internally from schools is getting to hear your teachers to hear what our employers want and need, and that's not
Mm.
just a top-down initiative from some superintendent that's not in touch with the needs of kids.
Yeah.
It's a good question. So again, leaning into building that conversation around power skills, problem solving, communication, adaptability, teamwork, time management, community leadership. This is what every conversation that comes forward with your community folks. These are the topics that want to be discussed, the skills that want to be discussed, and I'd really be curious to see those that have had these type of meetings with community partners, if this is the same themes that we're hearing and seeing across the country. My assumption is yes, but I know this is the conversation in the state of Indiana very heavily. Now, what does career exploration look like in our schools? The first thing I challenge folks, especially school leaders, is stop what I would call random acts of career exploration.
Mhm.
These things are happening just about in every school in the state or across the country. When you take field trips, they are getting career exploration. They just don't know it. So, what I encourage school leaders to consider is how do they make that zoo trip and an intentional zoo trip where they're talking about zoology and what it looks like, all the jobs that are involved in the zoo, and using that as, yes, it should be a fun experience, but also that learning experience. So stopping that random act of career exploration from grades pre-K through 12 is something that we went to work on pretty quickly here to build the conversation out, because I believe there's buy-in that must occur and self-identification that must occur at younger ages, and that happens through conversations on what careers are as our students are getting out and about. State of Indiana, I know you guys will hear David Miyashiro here later, but we have bought into the world of work. So we lean into the Halls Code, the Holland Code, the RISEC. Some of you may have seen this. So our students identify their strengths, interests, and values at a young age. So do our teachers. And so that allows us to build out that conversation. So when they go to the farm, that they talk about, this is a realistic job. So if you're a person that likes to work with your hands, this is a job that would be for you. When they go to the local 4-H and they see the beekeeper, like they get to talk about the strengths, interests, and values identified in the RISEC and connect those to the jobs of which they're experiencing. Again, that is just eliminating that random act of career exploration and just being intentional. Our elementary schools, pre-K through 6, they experience about 42 different career exploration trips. So grade level 2 may go to the zoo. So grade level 3, we have go to the speedway. So we don't try not to overlap what our field trips look like. So that way our students have more and more exposure to potential careers as they go along through elementary school. Other innovative approaches that you'll see through middle school and high school here, particularly in East Central Indiana, we were able to start something at Union City called Workforce Wednesday. That was an initiative that began 3 years ago, really was born out of passion projects. And what we learned as we were polling and speaking with our teachers is the burnout rate amongst teachers has a lot to do with student engagement. Like that we're just have lost the engagement piece of our kids. And again, I think that goes back to trying to deliver a telegraph education to a TikTok generation. Their attention spans are quick. So we leaned into those comments from our teachers, and what we agreed to is taking 20% of the days, not a large amount, so Wednesdays of every week in the year, and creating what we call Workforce Wednesdays. And these experiences were built around passions of teachers and students. So our teachers have 3 blocks. They select 3 things in which they're passionate about. So we have teachers that do sewing. We have teachers that do farm to table. We have a teacher raising funds for the local park. We have a teacher working on a U.S. history teacher, obviously working on a memorial wall for the veterans from our community. We had a teacher that started this really cool project called the UC Schoolies, which I'll share with you. So every Wednesday that those students go to those blocks or those teachers, and they work on that workforce development project every week. We sacrifice 20% of our time. And what we have seen is that attendance is the highest on Wednesdays. Discipline is next to nothing on Wednesdays. Our student engagement is through the roof on Wednesdays, and our teachers' morale and engagements on Wednesdays is through the roof. So the experience is really transforming what our kids are doing, but more so, I think it's important that we can't leave out how our teachers are feeling. It has really refilled the tanks of a lot of teachers that were entering that burnout portion of their career and giving them some revitalizations. Another form of this is Future Focus Fridays in another school, Western Wayne, here in East Central Indiana, that you see this type of work happening as well. So Workforce Wednesday, I wanted to share this quick video with you all. Really proud of this. One of our projects called the UC Schoolies, they took a decommissioned school bus and they turned it into an RV. And this has been a working process for 18 months. And they just got back from their trip out west, over 2,000 miles, 13 days, and 13 national parks. But I'm going to play a quick intro for this video.
It's been something I've been kicking around for years and years. But there were a great group of kids, and there was this pitch competition to raise some funds. The Schoolies was an idea that was brought up of taking a decommissioned school bus off of our city school buses and transforming it into an on-the-road mobile vehicle that we can use for so many learning opportunities, get them to different places and learn all around. I stuck my head into the superintendent's office. We talked about this before. But like, what if we the bus that we talked about before? Like, we will give you a bus. We've got at least one coming off that we're going to auction. So I'll get you the bus. Everybody thought it was great, so we hopped on to. We picked a team that can help us out, with plumbing, electrical, anything we need, and we trying to complete that. The journey is not just taking the bus places, it's building the bus, because that's where a lot of the learning is actually going to take place, because, we're going to have to put flooring in, run plumbing, all this stuff that we can use in the real world. So I think that's one of the biggest things is building and maintaining the bus, and not only just taking places. I have a great group.
So again, that video is linked. You all can watch it. I encourage you. But again, super proud of this group. They did this bus. It's pretty sweet. If you want it's got a full kitchen, sleeps 8 or 10, sorry, pretty comfortably. And they took this bus out west and they visited multiple parks. But so the journey was kind of the end of the project, and they're going to keep recreating that, taking this on trips. But it was great to hear the students' perspective on the learning that's occurring. Like these kids learn how to do plumbing, HVAC, run solar panels, like do all these things. Then they had to plan a trip. They had to raise the funds for the trip. They had to know how much gas they're going to need. They had to plan the stops in order to get gas. And they encountered some challenges along the way. They got into a blizzard when they got into the Dakotas, those type of things. So they had to navigate all that together, but they grew, and we'll have a video that comes out that really captures the trip itself in the future. But this was an experience, again, where teachers had to let go of the norm and be willing to allow kids to learn in a different way. And I would argue that the experiences that these students earned over the past 2 years are experiences that I think we all would want our kids to have when they're in school. Just not only the life experience, but just the skill set to be able to fix your own sink in the future, but having fun doing it. So really proud of that project here. And I know, Scott, you followed that pretty closely. Any questions that come along with Workforce Wednesday and that mindset and how we got there?
I got a quick question. I know that you're into a new school district, I believe this year. Talk about how you built not only the vision, but to help shift the mindsets so you can move towards that with a new staff.
Yeah, so you have to start with your teachers have to buy in, and they have to buy in early. And it was mentioned in the first session that knowingly they're going to be people that really struggle with giving up that class time for such projects, and you have to bring the people along, and you really have to get to sell it, and it's not selling it too much. That I want you to be happy in your role as an educator too. So let's look at this as a place to refill your tank. And we started with passion projects, and our teachers experienced those and had an incredible time with that, and got to know students at a different level.
Mm.
So that's where the buy-in started to grow, was through that passion projects. And then how do we make this bigger and better? And that's where Workforce Wednesday came in. But it was teacher-led, teacher buy-in for 2 solid years, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, good stuff.
In the
Sorry.
in the heart.
Another approach that I like to share with folks that we've started here in East Central Indiana, and we'll share 2 other quick things. One is this learning center. It's a community learning center that we developed for students in high school and outside of school. It was a partnership with our county and city government to revitalize a building downtown. And I'm just going to share a quick clip of this. It's called Vision Corner. But again, it's all about creating collaboration with business entities and civic entities to do better things for our students and our communities.
City, a once forgotten building has become a beacon of innovation, collaboration, and opportunity. The Vision Corner Learning Center.
Vision Corner Learning Center is really an interesting story. It starts with Mayor Chad Spence, and just his vision for recreating a downtown experience for the citizens here in Union City. And the conversation bloomed with me leading the school corporation here into what is our best assets in town? Like, what do we want to highlight? And we looked at our community. It's like, okay, what do we do well? What do we do so well that we should broadcast, if you will, and promote for other people to see? And so in surveying and canvassing the community, we have 2 outstanding programs at our school, Apache and KISS Communications. And luckily enough, they both could benefit from more space. But the other thing is too, that I found an issue was that a lot of people didn't know everything there was to know about them in our own community, let alone outside.
Vision Corner Learning Center.
So that's just a little snippet. And why I share that is, being in rural school districts, a lot of time folks, they wonder, how do we create all these work-based learning experiences when there's not a lot of partners? Like, you can be in rural Indiana, and some of our schools have very few business partners other than local farmers. So one thing that we created and that I'm passionate about is developing student-based enterprises. That small school in Indiana is the only school in the state of Indiana that has 3 school-based enterprises, which kids earn paychecks for profit sharing. One being a screen printing business. The other is a student-ran store that runs during lunchtime, where they sell healthy snacks and all those kind of things. And the other is a coffee shop that they started, but it's all student-ran, from management to production. And it creates those work-based learning experiences. And that was built out into Vision Corner to take those businesses downtown to create storefront opportunities for our students to learn. The other thing I encourage school districts in rural areas to do is look at your neighbors and figure out how you can work together to highlight one another. We started 2 years ago what we call the Rural Alliance Zone, and that was a combination of 3 rural schools that highlighted each other's CTE programs. So we started busing each other's students to each other's CTE programs that we did very well. Randolph Eastern, we had kids coming to our Apache and KISS TV and healthcare pathway. Randolph Central has an incredible welding pathway, so we started taking our students there. Monroe Central has an incredible early childhood pathway, so we started taking kids there. And we built this collaboration that is now 6 schools, soon to be 8 schools, to where we're sharing students so that they all can have incredible experiences through that CTE world. And we do have regional workforce development CTE centers. But what we found is sometimes those come with some negative connotations, and leaning into each other's strengths as far as school districts go, and get it and sharing students that way has really highlighted the programs. And this multi-sector approach is something that was a big undertaking, but we're very proud of it. It's got some national attention that I would be happy to expand on with folks that may have questions, in particular our rural folks that are looking for ways to create opportunities for their students. So I'm with this, and this is the question I think we all have to ask ourselves is, how are you transforming the learning experience to better meet the needs of the students today and the students like my daughter in 2035? What are we doing as school leaders to really transform, have difficult conversations and transform the experience for our students? That being said, here's the resources. I know they're linked in the document. Scott, I appreciate you having me, but I'd open it up to any questions that folks may have. I'm not even quite sure how much time we have left.
Yeah, we've got a little time left here. We can certainly open it up for questions. I got a few myself. What would be, because you're doing some things in your state, or you're taking these risks. What would be your advice to leaders that that will see pushback, resistance, to some of these, way outside the box type approaches?
Well, I think it's really matters. You believe in your vision or you don't. And if you believe in your vision and believe in your why, you have to be willing to have some tough conversations. Like the reality is there are some traditionally minded folks that struggle to wrap their mind around this conversation, and you're either coaching people up or coaching people out, and there's some conversations that come where you're lovingly just saying, hey, if this is not the setting for you, but to go beyond that, I think it's just getting buy-in. I think the wins that I've seen along this path is that ACP or AP teacher that was like, I can't lose the instructional time, but is now one of the best Workforce Wednesday teachers that you'd find, because they've grown a passion for seeing kids developing a relationship with a different group of kids that they would have never done so before. So create the buy-in with your teachers, but also be willing to have tough conversations when they need to happen.
When you, as you do your Workforce Wednesdays and you start out with passion projects in your previous school, because you had been doing that for a while, do you see then it shift, more towards a career focus or even a community engagement? And do you allow that to naturally happen, or do you push on that a little bit?
No, I think you push on it, you create wins, right?
Yeah.
So we created wins with those community partners that we knew would be all in. So like the recommissioning of the bus, I think about that process, and we knew that we had somebody that was heavily involved in school that knew HVAC. We had an electrician in town, so we had those employers in mind. And once they started modeling, partnering with these Workforce Wednesday projects, it really grew organically, that other partners were like, hey, how can we help? How can we come in and instruct students on these type of things? So I think you create the wins in the background, and
Yeah.
then people suffer from FOMO and they really want to be a part of what's going on. So that's been our experience.
Yeah. With the bus journey here, was that just this school year? And do you
Yeah,
allow,
so
do the kids go during the school year, or is it in the
yeah,
summer?
they went during the school year. They went 5 days were on their own, and the other 5 were part of their spring break. So they left the week before spring break in mid-March, in which we've learned that traveling up north to you all mid-March, it's still winter. Even though it's cold in Indiana, they learned a lot, putting that trip off a little bit. But yeah, they traveled on school time, because again, how can anybody argue that the level of education that they were
Yeah.
earning on that 13-day trip was not just a huge life lesson?
Yeah. Well, they hit a blizzard.
They did.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can learn a lot, right?
You
hunkered
better
down
believe
on the
it.
bus together
Yeah.
through a blizzard.
Yep. They,
Yeah.
they hit a blizzard and they learned that some of those mountain passes are pretty tight to drive a school bus through, but
Oh man.
they got it done.
So school bus, you have to have a CDL. Was there, obviously there was somebody that drove the bus that,
Yeah, so actually, if you go through the proper conversion process, it becomes an RV.
oh, okay.
Which was a learning process for the kids as well, because we knew we would have to have two CDL drivers on the bus because of drive time reasons, but it actually worked out to where it was a licensed RV.
Okay, yeah. We have a question here. It says, do you have a step-by-step approach with your Workforce Wednesdays that you would share? Steps to get started from the ground up, or is the Workforce Wednesday pitch competition link the place to start?
Great question, Melissa. I will tell you that that's probably, as I'm working through that process again,
Yeah.
I do need to get that in a document. But what I would tell you is start with passion projects, do your research, and get passion projects started, and then create a pitch competition where kids bring ideas of things that they want to be a part of. And then what you will see is the passion mixing between, you'd see teachers light up when they see a pitch from students, and you'd hear students line up when they hear pitches and passions from teachers as well. But that's where I would start.
Nice. What about your student leadership group? Do they have voice in your Workforce Wednesdays?
Absolutely. Yep. They were very instrumental, and they were instrumental in getting teachers to understand and buy in that there's a lot of maybe wasted time within a class period. So they were very honest, like, hey,
Yeah.
giving up 20%, and we can give you examples of where we're sitting in class doing nothing, playing on our devices, that kind of stuff. So, we're just going to have to maximize the time on the other 4 days. And that student voice and conversation with our teachers and community members was really pretty incredible. Again, they're boldly honest when you talk to them about their educational experience.
With your boy, I got like 1,000 questions. The with your student leadership group, who steers the conversations there? Is that you or a team? Do you involve some of your educators?
Yep. So I have two educators. My future readiness director of future readiness sits in on those conversations. So she helps develop the system too. But I also have a student intern in my office that is kind of my student director. So she creates an agenda of topics of what she's hearing from her classmates. And we just unpack it and just let it go. I'll be honest with you, buy Chick-fil-A and just say, hey, what's going on in high school? You don't need an agenda.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, it's one of the things I've always loved about you, Aaron, is that you're not a playbook guy, but a playbook will happen down the road from the great work that you're doing. And a lot of the times in education, that's what we look for, right? Give us the playbook so we know how to go do it. What I'm hearing is a lot of this meshes together. Your student leadership team is definitely going to give the information of we have wasted time, which allows you to lead to the conversation of what could we do differently, which could then venture into Workforce Wednesdays. So
Yeah,
that evolution.
when you unpack that looking backwards, you have students saying, I'm just wasting so much time, Mr. Black. Like, I don't understand why I'm in this class so long. And you have teachers really frustrated with our kids just aren't engaged what we're teaching them. So
Yeah.
it's pretty easy sell. All right, teachers, you're saying we need to do something different. Students, you're saying you want something different. So let's, try something new. And again, there wasn't a playbook. If you would have asked me the July before we started Workforce Wednesdays, I was pretty nervous because there wasn't here, all this is how this is going to play out. But 2 years later, I can tell you it was one of the best decisions we made academically in our school district.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of the times it's a matter of bringing people together and taking that risk and
Yeah.
just saying, let's do this in theory and let's figure out what it looks like as we go along the way. And that's uncomfortable for educators a lot of the times.
Yep, well, educators are type A personalities quite often, right? We want a blueprint for that success, but I think the magic happens in the gray. I think you have to be willing to have honest conversations, and you have to be humble. Like as a school leader, you can't believe that you have all the answers.
Yeah.
As a teacher, you can't believe that you have all the answers, and your kids have to be humble too. Like it is a humble experience.
Yeah. I know a lot of the work that I'm doing with districts, we ask ourselves a lot of what ifs. What if we did this? And then just throwing it out there, rolling the ball out, and let's go at it.
Yeah.
We'll keep reading here. The process being or
I'll share just quickly with the about challenges and opportunities here that one of the challenges that you got to realize is that there's a lot of teachers that will struggle, not a lot, there are teachers that will just struggle to wrap their mind around being so ambiguous sometimes. And what we had to do with a couple of our biggest naysayers is pair them with some of our biggest champions. So even today, we have a couple teachers that really struggled to develop the innovation of a project. So we paired them with one of our most innovative teachers, and they basically have become an instructional aid. Like our schoolies group has a teacher that is a very traditionally minded teacher, but what he helped that group with was all the planning for the trip. When do you need to stop to get gas? Where can you stop for gas? Where are the campsites along the way?
hmm,
Where can you food? If you break down, where's the nearest hardware stores? Like that's was his thing. That was his niche, and the kids learned through that. But 2 years ago was probably the person fighting this thought the biggest.
wow. Let me shift gears a little bit. I had some thought going back to your elementary. And again, I know you moved into a new school district. Your previous school district, you use a platform called Beable. Um, And we have Susan from Be Able today speaking. So if those that are listening here want to learn more about it, I'd suggest that you take a peek at it. But where are you at with that? How have you started shifting those mindsets with your elementary teachers so you can see 42 different career pathways being explored over time?
Yeah, I think on the career exploration side, well, the one thing that you get, like we do the first 15 and 15, so next school year, in the first 15 days, teachers have to spend 15 minutes with every one of their kids to develop this about me page. And to hear the stories that kids or teachers learn about their kids through that process, it's really, really enlightening. So that's something we'll start here. The career exploration piece is it's pretty easy when you talk about the teachers. Hey, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. We're just going to like be intentional about taking that field trip to the local park or taking that field trip to DD Danner, which is a manufacturing plant down the road. Those type of things. So I think that part is intentional. The harder part, and you brought up Be Able because of my past district. My daughter, who's a second grader, actually takes part in Be Able. So I get to see it as a father and to hear her talk about reading things that which she's interested in. It's it's been a fun experience for me because again, you try these platforms and things that are are going to help your literacy rates. But when you're a dad and you get to hear your daughter talk about the things the veterinarian topics that she's reading about at a second or third grade level, it's pretty exciting. So but getting that buy-in on literacy implementation, those type of things, that's a little harder
Yeah.
because especially in a state that is very driven by third grade reading tests, which I actually support the test because I think that's critical to student success. But the thought of giving up what they know as far as curriculum and giving the kids the academic freedom to read at their reading level about topics what they're passionate about, that's pretty uncomfortable for teachers.
Yeah, some good stuff. Well, let's just see if we've got any other questions before we head out. I mean, I could keep talking with you forever, but
Hey, Scott, I will put it out there. I'm pretty solid on responding via email. 24, 48 hours. So if there's direct questions or if somebody'd like to have a follow-up Zoom in the future, I'm happy to do that and network and provide any guidance that I can through the process.
Yeah, we definitely, Aaron, are gonna offer up to all of our presenters today to be a part of that follow-up networking event that we want to pull together at some point in June. We're thinking it's going to be in June once the school year is over, and maybe we can, you and I talk a little bit and do a specific session on your Workforce Wednesdays, a little tighter maybe, on
Sure.
it and throw some ideas around. And we're really trying to make that opportunity more engaging. So I think what we'll do is have more specific dialed in opportunities for our for those that have signed up here. So,
Yep, that'd be perfect.
okay. Well, if there's no other questions, David Miyashiro is next, but Aaron and David are going to be on later. I got to see what, I don't have it memorized here, but you're going to do a Q&A at 3:30 today. So as you're thinking of different questions for Aaron, David Miyashiro will join him this afternoon at 3:30. David's presentation will be somewhat similar to a certain degree. I'm thinking here, and I think the two of them will offer up some great opportunity to chat with them later this afternoon. So,
Yeah, but if I can offer any advice, do not skip out on David's presentation.
yeah, it's gonna be good.
He's really good.
Yeah, and he's passionate about the Green Bay Packers. So I mean, it's a win-win. I invited him up this summer to do a little powwow with some other superintendents, and then to go see a Green Bay Packers practice. And he says, "I don't want to powwow with superintendents. I just want to come up and visit the Packers." We can make that happen.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
All right,
Scott,
everybody.
hey, thanks for the invite.
Yeah, you bet, Aaron. Thank you. Thank you. And I'll be in touch.
Sounds good.
All right. All right, everybody. Next session will start in about a half an hour here. So take care and we'll see you back then. Bye-bye.